Hi guys, welcome to the Elevate Your Soul podcast. Today I have a slightly different episode for you guys because this time I am the one being interviewed by the wonderful Mark. He has his own podcast called Stepping Into Life. I will put his link in the show notes so you guys can click on that and have a look at what he does. And today Mark interviews me all about happiness. So we talk about why you want to be a happy person, how to be a happier person, and how to create more ease and love and fluidity in your everyday life. I talk a lot about my own life experiences and the dramas I went through to learn the lessons that I needed to learn in order to be a happier and stronger person that I am today. I hope you guys enjoy the episode.
Thank you for joining us on this Stepping Into Life podcast, Arel. If you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. This is my first podcast interview, so I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not going to lie. But a bit about me. I was born in Canada, and I grew up all over North America and Germany and a little bit of New Zealand. And I moved so much because I had hippie parents and they just love to move around a lot and see the world. And whenever we moved, I was always a bit sad about moving, and I would miss my friends and my home and all those sorts of things. But I was always okay. And I always managed, and I always had mom and dad to support me. And I always ended up finding new friends and so on and so forth. So in terms of happiness, I was all right. And it wasn't until the age of about 12 or 13 that was the first time in my life where I actually felt that I was an unhappy person. And when I think about my childhood before that, I was pretty happy for the most part. I was a child who was always off in my own head and very creative and imaginative. So I was always off doing my own thing anyway, very introverted and things. But yeah, until the age 12, I found myself being really, really unhappy. And this was a time of my life where my dad had recently passed away from cancer. And then my grandfather, my father's dad, died soon after that. So my family kind of split off and fell apart. My older sister moved out straight away because she had a hard time handling with the grief, and she became really aggressive and just wanted to get away and leave the family. So she left, and then it was just me, my mom, and my younger sister. So the family of 5 very quickly became a family of 3, and I had to really step up my game at 11 years old and take care of my little sister and help my mom with the grief of losing her husband and her soulmate who she dated since she was a little kid. So I was there as a support for my mom, who went through an episode of depression herself, and my little sister became really aggressive and a bit violent at kindergarten and was thrown out of her kindergarten, and my older sister became aggressive and left. So I was the quote-unquote strong one in the family when all of this shit happened. And then soon after my father passed away, we also moved from Canada to New Zealand, and that's when things started to fall apart for me, because the thing that was keeping me going at that time when my family was, flipped upside down was my friends. I was age 12. That's quite common at that age, preteen. So I relied on my friends to, as a distraction from my grief and like a place to escape and hang out with other people who made me laugh. And I was a cheerleader at the time. So, I was on the cheerleading squad, and I had a boyfriend. I had all these things that kept me going at that time. But then when we moved to New Zealand, I lost all my friends, lost all of that, those supports that I had around me. And I just completely lost my whole sense of safety and security. And I didn't make new friends in the new school that I came to in New Zealand, and things were just done so differently. Like I had to wear a school uniform, and I was just known as the weird, different new girl from America at the time at the new school. And through all of that, I became suicidal and I did self-harm. I grew extreme social anxiety. I would have constant anxiety attacks. I also had anger management, so I wasn't a nice person to be around. I was depressed. I had insomnia. I could never sleep. I had an eating disorder, and all of these things just kind of came one after the other after the other. And I found myself being really, really, really unhappy for the first time of my life and feeling like I couldn't continue on with my journey being this way. So when you're in that much pain, and I'm sure some people can relate listening to this, you eventually get to a point where you're like, fuck this, I can no longer do this anymore. And at that point, I had two decisions, and that was death or happiness, like kill myself or do whatever I can to make myself a happier person again, because I was so unhappy and I just no longer accepted that. I said it was not okay. So from that point, I just turned 14 years old, and I just till now, I have done a complete 180. Definitely easier said than done. It took about 10 years for me to do that dramatic change from, wanting to kill myself to being completely happy and grateful and a bouncy, laughing, loving person who I am today. But it was obviously completely worth it. And I think everyone's journey to happiness and living a better life, it's a lifelong journey, really, but it's not something that happens overnight. You need to be patient with these things. And yeah, what helped me the most, I guess, going through all of that was discovering who I am and doing lots of personal development and getting to a place where I truly love myself and where I truly can see what my beliefs are, and getting in touch with all of those thoughts and beliefs that I had in my subconscious mind. And yeah, pretty much discovering who I actually was, because I'm not that depressed girl who was, wanting to commit suicide. I am the person I am now. So it's a lot of self-discovery that got me to where I am today.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So I mean, lots of questions now. When did you sort of notice that? Because you said about 11 or 12, you kind of realized, hey, I'm not happy with me. I'm not happy with life. Was there something that was there a particular moment that just made you notice, hey, I'm not actually that happy?
Yes. It was a little less like graphic, so I can't like really explain it. Like I was on top of the bridge, like, and then I saw the light. Like it was nothing like that. But it was like, I remember already at the age of like 11 and 12, I would like cut myself and I would like tally up my cuts, like little graphs. And then I thought like once I get to 5 or something, like once it gets that painful, like I'd only cut if it like was really, really serious and I was in so much pain. I was like 11 at the time. I was so young. And I already had these thoughts like once it gets to 5 and my cuts haven't healed, then that means I'm in too much pain to want to live and I'll kill myself. Like it was just like that crazy. And that went on for a good 3 years. And what honestly made me change was my little sister. So when my dad passed away and my older sister moved out and my mom was like a fucking mess, my little sister was 4. And she was like, from the moment she was born in the family, she was just the rainbow and the sunshine of the family. She just brought that extra spark to our family. And my dad absolutely loved and adored her. And she was just this funny little plump little adorable little thing. And yeah, so she was 4 and I was 11, and I started feeding her. I started cooking for us. I picked her up from school, made sure she got to school, packed her school lunches, brought her to bed at night, woke her up in the morning, got her dressed, brushed her hair, did all those sort of things that a parent would do. She even called me mom for like 5 or 6 years when she was a child. So she was like my baby. So I don't have any kids myself now, but I feel like I can relate to some extent when people say they have children and they use that as a reason why they want to live or why they want to be healthy and happy and heal themselves. So she was my why. She was my reason. And I do remember quite distinctly, I was like about to commit suicide. And then I was just like, it was a moment of non-selfishness. And I was like, what the hell am I going to leave behind if I kill myself right now? Like, my little sister would have been about 6 at the time. And my mom relied on me so much to look after Giselle, my little sister. I thought, I'm going to leave my family in a mess. My older sister already isn't getting along with the family. She already hates us. She's just gonna, freak out even more. She might even want to commit suicide. She's unhappy. She's not dealing well. My little sister, I am there 100% to take care of her. My mom could not afford a nanny at the time to look after my little sister and do all the things that I did. And then my mom on top of it was still grieving and going through her own, sort of depression. And it was really, just a moment of not being selfish and just thinking okay, hey, if I really pull the trigger right now, what am I going to leave my loved ones? How am I going to leave them? And that was when I was like, holy shit, I cannot do this, especially for my younger sister. She's going to grow up and be a mess. And I just had this horrific vision of my older sister or my mom killing themselves, and then my little sister just growing up with half of her family dead or something. I was just like, no, I cannot ruin such a beautiful little child, an innocent little child. I cannot ruin someone's life like that. I need to be strong and I need to be there for her mainly. And I was living in New Zealand in Whangarei actually at the time. And when I had this conversation with my mom, I am 100% real when I say I want to kill myself, but I want to be here for you guys and my little sister and the family. But I'm really not enjoying the transition and the time that I had in New Zealand. I didn't make any friends and I tried so hard and I just had no connections with anybody at
Why
the
do you
school
think
I
that
was
was?
at. Why?
Just yeah. I mean,
To
obviously, I
be
didn't know
to be
you then.
honest, I think it could have been 50-50, it could have been my mindset, but I just wasn't invited. The girls at the school, it was an all girls school, 1,500 girls, and I would be eating my lunches some days in the toilet stall. So I would go to the bathrooms for my hour break and I would sit on the toilet and eat my lunch. And I was pretty sick at the time, so I was very thin with my eating disorder, and I got really cold, so I would just be the weird skinny girl, and I would bring a hot water bottle to school, and I need to refill it every hour because I was so cold, and I would just hold it in my on my stomach. And I was just the odd one out, and a lot of people picked up my accent, and because of my accent as well, I don't know, they were just young girls, and they all kind of had their own cliques. Oh, we all went to primary school together, so we're 8 friends and we're not going to want a ninth. So sometimes they'd be nice and they let me sit with them at lunch, and I became really grateful when I had a group of friends who were like, oh yeah, you can sit with us at lunch. I was like, great, no more eating lunch in the toilets anymore. But they never, and then at lunchtime they'd say oh, that sleepover we had on the weekend was so cool, and oh, we're all going to go to the movie tonight. And just not once did it cross their minds oh, who's this girl hanging out with? I don't know. They just thought, I don't know, I brought my friends over from Canada and they were all at home or something. I don't know, but I just wasn't included at all. And I was craving to just go back to Canada and see all my amazing friends. I had amazing friendships in Canada, like deep ones that I would just like, I'd be creative with my friends, and we made music videos and we'd laugh and we'd stay up late and we'd always want to be around each other. So my mom actually, like, finally, she took me seriously, and she was like, okay, if you get your shit together, like get healthier, show me that you can take a little bit of care for yourself and your health, then I will buy you a plane ticket in 6 months to Canada. And like from that point, I was just like, yes, I have a reason to live. Like, I'll be here for my little sister, and then I can go back and have my soul connections with my besties in Canada. And I tried to get better, and I was still kind of stuck because I didn't change my mentality. So I changed my physical health, but I didn't really work on my subconscious beliefs. So I did end up going back to Canada after 6 months. And I was in Canada until I finished schooling, which was another 3 years. So I lived for a year with my friend. And then I was there for another 2 years. My mom actually came back for 2 years with my little sister. So it was really good. And I was able to finish school until having to return to New Zealand. And those 3 years that I was back in Canada and doing school, I was actually really happy again. But it wasn't a result of like working on myself and changing my subconscious beliefs or anything like that. It was really just like I had alternatives and things outside of me that made me happy, like all my friends and a great school. And then I got boyfriends and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So there were more external things, but I didn't know that at the time. So I just linked like, oh, just being in Canada makes me happier or whatever. And I didn't really understand that the issue lied within my own feelings of self-worthiness and my own subconscious beliefs that were really shitty that I still held within my mind at the time. So it wasn't until I came back to New Zealand after finishing high school, and then that time we moved to Wellington instead of Whangarei. So once again, it was like a whole new start. And the same kind of thing happened. Like, I didn't make friends. I couldn't connect with anyone. And it was even worse though, because I was no longer in school. And I wasn't working either. I was on student allowance, actually. I went to uni, but I just didn't make any friends. And 3 years after that, like deep episode, that dark episode, I became depressed again. And all my issues started coming back. I couldn't sleep. I got depressed. I got a bit of anger management. And I just blamed like my living situation. I was just like, oh, Canada is just really great and blah, blah, blah. Like, nobody in New Zealand understands me. And then I met a beautiful Kiwi man, a very charming man who swept me off my feet when I was really young, when I was here in a really dark space. And he just took care of me, and eventually we fell in love. And that was a very, very, very toxic relationship, which I didn't know at the time because he was my first real boyfriend and he was my first real love. So I had no idea what I was really in at the time, but I thought it was great because I didn't know any better. But he was by far my biggest soul teacher. Like, I learned so much in this toxic relationship, and I needed someone. I'm so grateful that I had someone at such a young age to push me so far in a space of completely losing. Like, I thought I was a crazy person in the relationship, like completely pushing me all the way in the darkest corner to the point where I was like, who am I? What am I? What is life about? What is love? Like, is this normal? Why am I not happy? Why are other people happy? Like, it really, really pushed me to question, who the fuck am I? And why the fuck am I not happy? Like, it really, really pushed me to get curious and question these things. And then through being curious and through questioning things, I started doing personal development. I started working on self-love, things like self-awareness. I started attending courses. I went to one of Tony Robbins' events with my mom. I started listening to podcasts, all these sort of things. And it took years of doing this and taking care of myself, but it was just one little step at a time, and that persistence and consistency to keep doing things that initially felt good and put me in a better space. And then eventually I gained the mental strength and the right core beliefs to leave that man and leave that relationship and have the life that I do now, which I am very happy now. I'm one of those annoying friends where you're like, "Hey, Rel, have you been?" Or like, "What's up?" And I'm just like, "Oh my God, like I've been fantastic, of course. Like I'm always happy. I love my life." Like, and sometimes that pisses people off, but like I'm genuinely authentic about it. And I do love my life and I love who I am. And yeah, I have to be thankful and grateful for all the shit that I've been through in my childhood, because that's made me the strong, happy person that I am today.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Something that kind of just sort of confuses me a little bit is
Mm-hmm.
your previous partner, the one
Yeah.
because it's on one hand it was toxic, and then on the other hand, it sounds like he also introduced you to a lot of things that really, really helped you.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to share some light on that?
Yeah. What do you mean by introduce me to things?
Well, it just sounded like he kind of introduced you to a lot of the personal development things, or he.
Ah, I see. Maybe I didn't explain that part right. No, he he didn't introduce me to any of that.
Oh, okay,
So
fine.
so when we attracted each other at the time, it was just like this instant chemistry connection, that like one of those things that you can't explain, but you just love being around this person. You don't even know why, but it was just like an immediate connection when we met. And the reason why we were so attracted to each other is because we were at the same level of um how do I say this? At the same level of self-love, the same level of consciousness, the same level of self-awareness. We had a lot of the same subconscious beliefs. So we had so many similarities. You know, he was mirroring me, but all of my shadow sides and all of the things I needed to work on. So I was really attracted to him because of that. And because of that, we had a pretty close, obsessive relationship. But then when I decided that the relationship wasn't what I thought it was, and that maybe he wasn't treating me right, and maybe it wasn't the way a happy relationship should be. And when I started questioning that and I started thinking, well, what can I do to make it better? I started working on myself, but he didn't introduce that to me. And honestly, the more I worked on myself and the more I said, you know, I put my foot down and said, hey, you can't talk to me that way. And the way you're treating me isn't right. And I have a right to, you know, make my own friends and hang out with who I want. The more I grew a sense of being an individual and making my own decisions and being an adult, the more tension there was between us. So he wanted me as his little dependent, you know, girlfriend, who would just do whatever he said and stayed in the same limiting beliefs that he had. But I stepped outside of that, and that grew a lot of tension. And when I say tension, I mean tension, like a lot of fights and abuse and aggression, because he didn't want me to grow, like because he knew that the more I grew within myself, he wouldn't be able to keep me. So he had a decision at the time to grow with me, which is what I wanted, or to let me, you know, go down a different road. And I started heading down a different pathway, and we weren't in alignment anymore. And I carried on with my own journey, but easier said than done. Like I did try to leave him many times, and I kept going back. And that was just me not doing the work, not completing the work that I needed to do in order to leave the relationship.
Why do you think he didn't want to join you on that journey of just sort of, I don't want to necessarily say bettering himself, but actually
Yeah, totally.
discovering more about himself? Why do you think he didn't want to go along
Fear.
with it?
Fear, 100%. Like, I believe everything you do in life comes from a place of love or fear. And I had, up till that point, I had about 6 or 7 or 8 years of going through a lot of shit and being more of an adult in the open world, I guess, or not even that many years, maybe like 5 years or 3. I was very young, but of being in the adult world and feeling like a shitty adult, you know what I mean? Like feeling like low self-esteem and low self-worth, like many of us do in society. But he had, 25 years of that. He was a lot older than me.
Mm.
So, I believe that anyone can change at any point in their life. But I do believe that the longer you hold these subconscious beliefs, the longer it is going to take to change and rewire your brain. And so he had 25 years of bullshit to recover from, and I just had a few years to recover from. And it was also the beliefs that we held. So somehow I was lucky enough, and I don't even know how I adopted it, probably because I didn't stay in the darkness for as long as he did. I adopted a belief that I am worthy of living a happy life, and that I am worthy of living my dreams. I'm worthy of becoming the person I've always dreamed to be as a child. And he just didn't have that same belief. He chose to hang on to the belief that I am not worthy enough. I'm a piece of shit. I don't deserve the love. I don't deserve to be in a happy relationship. I don't deserve to live an abundant life. I don't deserve, or it's not possible to live my dream. He held on to those beliefs, and I slowly adopted the other more positive beliefs. And that's what drew us eventually further and further apart from each other.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a
So,
sad story
no, no, please
because,
continue.
yeah.
There's because one thing that you mentioned, well, a few things actually. The one about how he kind of want to keep you as his, I guess, a little dependent
Yeah.
girlfriend, and also that fear that he didn't want to, whatever it was that he held on to that was holding him
Yeah.
back.
So he
Um,
had two fears. He had a fear of losing me because of my growth, but then he also had a fear of growing himself. And I guess I'm not sure exactly what his fear was, but it would have been a mix between his own limiting beliefs and worrying too much about what other people think, like not wanting to be different. And it is a scary process for someone who is doing personal development. If they've always been faking or having some sort of facade or masking and not being truly authentic and vulnerable, when you make that decision to be vulnerable and be the true you and step into your true authentic self, it's a very scary process, especially if you've been living in the same place your whole life. Like, I guess I was lucky in the sense that nobody in Wellington really knew me. So I was in a new place discovering myself, and I had no one to say, oh, this is a Ralph, she's this way. I had no one attaching labels to me at that time where I was living. So it was a chance to recreate myself, whereas he was in the same place. So for him, his workmates had an idea of who he was or who he is now. His friends have an idea of who he is now. And changing all of that, you have so much fear of, are my friends going to love me? What am I going to lose? Like, there's so much that you're putting at stake in a sense. That's what the subconscious mind believes, and that's what the fear part of you believes. It is a scary process. It's not easy. So yeah.
I feel like that's, and I totally agree.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's, I don't know about for females, but I feel like that's quite a common thing for men,
Yeah.
especially in New Zealand. I don't know what the rest of the world is
Yeah.
like, but I've noticed across New Zealand that is a really, really, really big thing. And a lot of men seem to, I would actually,
What are you saying is a big thing in New Zealand?
I
What
think
exactly?
men sort of just not really truly understanding who they are, like their true
For
self, their
sure.
authentic self. And
Yeah.
they are either a combination of being too scared to explore that,
Yeah.
or actually just not knowing how. And
Yeah.
so they're kind of just walking around really confused. Um, and I think it's
Unreal.
what would you say? I mean, obviously you've kind of gone through and you mentioned that you've done a lot of personal development. What kind of personal development avenues did you sort of pursue?
I just wanted to comment on what you had to say. Kiwi men, for sure. Like, I think it's a Western society thing, though, so that like that includes all like first world countries. But I'm not a man myself. But
Oh,
what I do realize is both females as well, though. Like, we all have our own shit to get through, and I don't think there's a lot of females who aren't being authentic either. But for men, that I've realized in New Zealand, because I've lived here, I can say this. There's a lot of pressure to be quote unquote masculine and like own your masculinity and all that bullshit, which doesn't require you to be, but men think that they can't cry, or they can't be emotional, or they can't be romantic, or they can't express themselves. They want to express themselves. And it's the same for women, but like honestly, if you think about that, like how fucked up is that? Like anyone is going to be unhappy. Nobody can be happy and live a life where they feel that they can't be themselves, or live a life where they feel that they need to cover up their emotions. Like I just think like it's common sense to me that nobody can be happy with those kind of beliefs or and living that kind of way. So
100% agree.
yeah, yeah. Which is sad. I want to change that.
And I would like to change that too.
Yeah.
Um, I was in a, I was actually in a class last night, and I was speaking with she was a slightly older lady now next to me, and we started talking about things like this, and I was kind of just saying, this is my opinion about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
The I don't think that, no, sorry, let me try that again. I think part of the reason why there's such a flawed display of masculinity is, I think, a lot to do with men not really having good, quite an established and widespread foundation that has
Hmm.
shown them how to be a good person.
Hmm.
Not even just a man, but just how to be a good person.
Yeah.
There's a bit of stats around the family unit. After World War II, there's been a really steady, quite rapid actually, decline of the family unit. Like right after World War II, most families were very agrarian, so they worked on farms, and so they had their dads, their uncles, their cousins, their brothers, their
Yeah.
granddads, and they all worked together. So a boy growing up got to spend a lot of really quality time with all the different men in his family and extended family, and probably even like further past that as well. And so they got kind of a much broader sense of what men do and what they're like, and how they talk to each other, and how they sort of speak to other people in the family, like their
Yeah.
sisters, cousins, wives, aunties, and grandmas, and things like that. Um, and then every decade after the war, it has been quite a drastic decline in that, as families and people have become more urbanized. And now there's a very small subset of the population that actually spends much time on the farm, let alone with extended family. And
Yeah.
so I think men just don't really know how to be men, because they haven't had much time to spend
Yeah.
with other men from different generations, and just being kind of shown how to grow up.
And it's different cultures too, even. Like, I'm sure if every Kiwi boy went to Europe for 3 years or Africa for 3 years, they would grow up to be a completely different person.
Yeah, I would say they probably would.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, no, interesting. Interesting.
So what kind of things now would you say, what kind of things do you do that bring you happiness?
Oh man, so many things that I've built into my lifestyle as routines that I don't even think about. They're not even like conscious anymore. They're just like subconscious things that I do, or like new habits that I have. Um, like it's about change. You want to maintain the happiness. It's not just about like going on a 12-week diet or whatever, or some kind of cleanse and then being happy and then just going back to the way you were. It's about changing your whole lifestyle and putting things in place every single day that you know are going to keep you being a happy person and not, take you back into the darkness. So, um, just it's pretty much like a slow process of removing things from your life that you are able to remove that cause stress and unhappiness and drama and just any unnecessary bullshit, and putting more things into your life that bring you joy and happiness. So it's about removing things that no longer serve you and making more time for things that serve you and are in alignment with your life purpose and in alignment with your happiness.
Cool. I really like those answers. That was fantastic.
Thanks. Yeah, I believe it has a lot to do with learning how to love yourself, or relearning how to love yourself, and becoming self-aware, and a lot to do with changing your beliefs, your limiting beliefs. And like things like, I think people are a little bit too focused in our society on like what they're eating and how much they're exercising and sleep and all that kind of stuff. Yes, all that stuff is really important, but if you're eating a good diet and you still have shitty, subconscious beliefs, you're never going to be happy. And I feel that rather work on your beliefs and your mentality and all those things. And from there, then everything else falls into place. Like you're going to end up feeling like you want to work out, and you're not going to push yourself so far that you're always in pain and you always need to go to the physio. You're not going to be, like an idiot about it, because you're self-aware. And you're not going to sit on the couch all day either, because you know that physical exercise makes you feel good. Like it's all about doing things that make you feel good and not doing things that make you feel like shit. Like it's honestly easier and like more simple than what some people like to believe. And I feel like some people love to overcomplicate things, such as happiness, because it's an excuse for them not to start putting things in place and start making progress. But it's actually more simple than what people make it out to be. It's not like this huge thing that only smart people can understand. It's actually quite simplistic. And yeah, a huge one is changing your subconscious beliefs. Like so many of us have beliefs that we're not even aware that we have. And once you can crack those, like all those beliefs that are no longer serving you, that is going to change your life.
my mentor, he public speaks actually quite often, but
Yeah.
he told me about how he was invited to this. It must have been like some kind of day-long conference thing, and the speaker that was before him was this lady who, like, very advanced degree in the study of happiness,
Yeah.
and the thing he described her as the most dreary lady possible. Like it was almost like she hasn't seen the sunshine in like 10 years. And I think it's kind of like I guess kind of like a joke. If you break it down or you try to get too analytical about it, it loses any sense of humor or fun to it. And I
Exactly.
think happiness is like that as well. The more you try to focus on chasing happiness, the
Yeah.
further it gets away from you.
Yeah.
And he also taught me what he describes as the five pillars of life, of essentially how to have a smooth life.
Yeah.
And so the five things were: one, relationships; two, health; the third, career; fourth, finances; and fifth, spirituality. And basically, if you can look after all of those five things, then that will just basically improve the quality of your life a lot.
For sure. Have you heard of Tony Robbins' six core human needs?
I have.
You have? Yeah, those I like those a lot.
Was there a particular moment or point when you sort of just realized, holy shit, I'm not that unhappy person anymore, and I'm really happy with the moment right
Right.
now?
That's an interesting question. To be honest, uh there wasn't like one point where I was just like I woke up and I was like, "Oh shit, I'm a happy person now." um it was definitely like a slow thing, but it's kind of I love New Year's Eve or like New Year's Day and Thanksgiving are like by far my two favorite holidays of the year. And every New Year's Eve, I love like reflecting back on the year and kind of making visions and dream boards or whatever for the next year. And every single year I've been doing that for like the past 4 years. My reflection of the year, I'm like, oh wow, like last year was so much better than the year before. And then I'm like, it would be great, like with no expectations, but it would be great if I could make this year just like a tiny bit better than the last year. And I kind of been doing that every single year. And every year has been like drastically just better in terms of I don't even know, like just me just I'm laughing more. I'm making more friends. I'm making more deeper spiritual connections with other people and the earth and myself. Yeah, there wasn't just like one moment where I was just like, "Oh, I'm unhappy and now I'm happy." It was definitely like a slow journey, but with a lot of highs and lows as well. Like it wasn't like this smooth, steady uphill slope. It was a lot of ups and downs. So you need to be a bit gentle with yourself as well. Like you can't chase happiness, as you said. It's not like something you can tick off your to-do list. Like happiness done. Like on to the next thing. Like
If
you
only it
need,
was that easy.
exactly. You need to keep nourishing it, like as you would water a plant. Like you need to keep nourishing that. But the beliefs things is a huge thing. Like once you change your beliefs on everything, especially like adopting an optimistic mindset is everything. Like if I have anything that's quote unquote negative now, like if I feel nervous or if I feel rejected or embarrassed or sad or lonely or any of those kind of feelings, I'm so self-aware. I ask myself, okay, great. Like I get excited. I'm like, oh yeah, like there's something I can learn. Why am I feeling this way? What else is there inside me that I haven't unfolded yet or uncracked yet? So it's just like having that good mindset. Like if something shitty happens to you, that's out of your control as well. It's like, I believe that everything happens for a reason. That's my choice to believe that. You know, other people are like, oh, everything doesn't happen for a reason. It's like, cool. You can believe that the world is against you or the universe is not in your favor. Like, you can choose to have that belief and see how life's going to turn out for you. And if you have another belief like the universe is in my favor and everything does happen for a reason and life happens for me and not to me, if you adopt those beliefs, then you're going to have a different life. Like, it's ultimately at the end of the day, it is your choice what beliefs you have, you know, and what decisions you make and what career choice, what job you're going to apply for and what relationship you're in and what friends you're going to have. And for anyone who's listening, I just want to throw this out there. Like, for anyone who's listening, there is one thing that I want to point out there. I do believe that happiness comes from the inside, definitely. But there was always this thing that I was unsure about when it comes to making a drastic change, such as like moving a different city or a different town or even a different country. And I do believe that honestly does help, though, because it helps put you in the right space mentally and like within yourself. It puts you in the right space to make a big change. So like, for anyone who's listening to this, who's just like lived in the same town their whole life and they feel that their friends, you know, that they could have better quality friendships, they just don't know where to look, or you know, they're wanting to transform themselves. And what I was saying before, like how when I moved to Wellington, like that was kind of helpful. Like, no one had any attached labels on me already where I was. Like, I had that chance to recreate myself. Like, if anyone wants to do that, moving is such a great opportunity to do that. And if you're not wanting to move, then travel. Like, traveling helped me a lot as well. I always forget about saying that, but actually, yeah, traveling helped me massively. And I did like, on top of reading all the books and doing these courses and listening to podcasts every day. I don't listen to podcasts every day now, but I did for many years. But traveling as well, I did 3 months on my own, just traveled all over the world, and I had no itinerary. I had one little suitcase, and I was just like, I'm just going to book one-way tickets like around the world and see how long I last with my savings. That was like a huge turning point for me as well. So just remove yourself from the environment you're in now if you're wanting to discover more about yourself and learn more about yourself. Like just move like for 6 months or a year if you can, or just travel the world and see different cultures and different ethnicities and see how people live differently. And yeah, all that stuff definitely helps discover, you know, learn about yourself and learn about others. And yeah, that was a huge learning experience for me as well as traveling.
So what was it? So what is it about New Zealand that, because you hated it originally? So
I know, right? I did. Well, it was the relationship. The I don't want to call it toxic relationship because it did have its beautiful moments. But it was that first relationship that I had in Wellington. Yeah, I was addicted to him. Like, we were both addicted to each other and obsessed with each other, because we had a lot to learn from each other. So that he had like a hook on me. And yeah, and I did love him. I still love him. So I stayed for him. And then when I left that relationship, I stayed for the summer in Wellington. And then after that, I was like, and once again, I moved. I was like, I am at a different stage in my life. Like, I need a turning point. Wellington served me well, as in like put me through a lot of shit. Like, a lot of shit happened in Wellington for the time I was there. And yeah, I was just like, I need a change and I need to move. But it was also the weather. Like, in fairness, Wellington is a bit too cold for me. Although I lived in Canada, yeah, I like the warmth. So I was going to move overseas again, actually, but I thought I want to stay a bit closer to home because my mom's still in Wellington and my sister's still in Wellington. So I thought I'll try somewhere that's not too far away first. So I just came up to Auckland, and it's a good 5 degrees warmer and not constant gusts and gales blowing away. So yeah, so that actually helped as well. So like once I left the relationship, I still stuck in the same town for a while. But then I did eventually move as well. And so yeah, I'm finally settling in here in Auckland. I'm making new friends, and yeah, it's gone really good.
Well, life sounds like it's definitely a lot more stable right now. So that's always a really good thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like stability, we all have a different sense of how much stability we need depending on who we are. I find some people need more stability than others, but yeah, they kind of go, you just need to figure out how much stability you need to be a happy person, and just go from there.
Yeah. So how would you say, what would you say you're about now? And so that just like who you are and what you're sort of about in life and what you are for other people.
Well, that changes every day.
Interesting.
So I never want to attach definition to myself or therefore anybody else as well, because we're always changing and we're always growing and we're always learning. And every time you learn something new, you can add that piece of knowledge to your identity and your beliefs. So, people are always changing, and you need to give them that space too. So it's good not to attach labels and things to people. But right now I am young and healthy, and I want to experience my youth and my ability to move and be physically fit and healthy for as long as I can. Not saying that that's going to change much, but yeah, so I just want to just be happy, and whatever that feels like on the day, I will do that. So it doesn't change too drastically, obviously, from day to day, but this year might look a lot different from next year and might look a lot different from the next year. So, yeah, I don't attach things to my happipiness. Like, I'm not someone who's like, oh, I'm all about yoga and I'm not married, but like when people say like, oh, I need my husband and I need yoga and that's what my life's about and that's what brings me happiness. I'm not for that, because I believe like I want to experience as much as I can in the lifetime I have. So yeah, it changes from month to month and day to day, but yeah, right now I'm just about being happy and doing things that feel good. And if anything doesn't feel good or doesn't make me happy, I'm just not going to do it. I'm going
That's
to
a
get
lot
it
of
out of my
sense.
life. If I hang out with someone who doesn't, lift me up, or if I feel depleted at all after I hang out in a certain area or even a certain restaurant, like I'm that sensitive to energies. If I'm in a certain space and I don't feel good, I'm not going to go back there. And that's with anything in my life. So yeah, I don't know if that kind of answers your question or not.
It's a pretty open question. I wasn't really
Yeah.
trying to fish for anything. So I quite like the openness of your answer actually.
Yeah.
On a crazy side question though,
Yeah. Go for it.
how come you're so flexible?
That is a very weird side question.
Well, it was just something so I showed your profile to the girl who works for me,
Yeah.
and that's literally the thing that she said. She was just like, "You doing like I don't know, some kind of stretch," and she was like, "Wow, that girl
Yeah.
is really
Well,
flexible."
it's good you kind of asked that, because we hardly know each other. So the things you're asking or curious about, probably a lot of my listeners would be
Which is a
curious
fair
about.
call, yeah, totally.
Yeah, so it's a fair call. So other people are probably listening to this right now being like, oh my God, I've wanted to know that forever. um, it's two things. Well, okay, it's mainly one thing, which is patience and consistency. And the second thing would be genetics. So yes, like you can be persistent and consistent and patient with your flexibility. But at the same time, some people are just not built to like ever do a certain movement with their back or their hips, like the way their pelvis is structured. They'll just never be able to do a certain move. So it does depend on like your actual bone structure. And then on top of that, the rest of it is just tissue, right? Like how flexible your tissue and your muscles are. And that is something that you can play with and you can distort yourself. So, but that does take a lot of time and a lot of patience. Like for me, I feel like with your cardio health, you can gain the quickest. Like you can gain your fitness for cardio really, really quickly. Strength comes second to that. So like building muscle takes a little bit longer than that. And then flexibility is like the third, and that just takes the longest. And that's why people get really frustrated. But yeah, you just need to keep at it and be patient.
So much time and patience. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So, okay, what are the things that you're the most grateful for in life now?
Oh. I didn't think about this one before.
On the spot.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I just need a moment to like use my brain. I am most grateful for my body and my health and my beliefs and the work that I've done to get me to where I am today, especially with my beliefs and my lifestyle, like the choices I've made to have the life that I have now. I'm really grateful for that. And if you're talking about like more physical things, like objects, my dog, definitely my little Chi-Chi. He's like, I've had him for about 2.5 years now. He brings me so much joy. And if anyone has a dog who's listening to this, they know like how much joy you get from a dog, because they are hands down like one of the very few things in life these days that will love you unconditionally and never make you feel bad. You know, they'll always have good intentions. They're always happy to see you. And they're the perfect example of being like 100% present. Like they're always in the moment with themselves and with you. And that is something that's very special these days, because I don't feel that many people do it. So my dog, my relationships, and my friends, definitely. Yeah.
Cool. No, I get that. I don't have a dog, but I have a cat. I don't know earlier if you could hear some meowing. That was her being a princess. But yeah, it's even though people don't usually say it about cats, but I feel like my cat is, yeah, I think she does show a lot of unconditional love.
For sure. Yeah.
And I don't know, I've had her for a long time now. I've had her for 13 years, ever since she was a little baby. And
she's like your baby. Yeah.
she literally is. She's been
Yeah.
with me through like a lot of things.
Yeah.
But
I believe like, yeah, relationships in general is like the best things in life, like all relationships. And the more deeper and meaningful, obviously, those friendships and connections are, the more happiness they're going to bring you. So yeah, I'm grateful for all my relationships and connections that I have with people. And in order to create those deep, meaningful connections with people, you need to be authentic. So if anyone's listening to this and is like, I have shit friends, or, my girlfriend doesn't know me. Like, yeah, practice vulnerability and authenticity. So yeah, and that'll bring you happiness for sure.
So would that be sort of your, I guess, parting advice to anybody who's maybe just sort of a little bit confused in life right now, or just sort of searching for something? With what kind of advice would you give to somebody?
Do more of what makes you happy. Make time in your schedule for things that light you up from the inside. as well as take out things from your life, in your day-to-day life, that don't make you feel good, if you can. And if you can't change some things that don't bring you happiness or that don't make you feel very good, change your perspective. That would be my number one advice, plain and simple.
It is great advice.
Thank you.
Cool.
And listening to podcasts such as mine and Mark's podcast.
Totally, 100%. Why are you not?
Every single day.
Every day on repeat.
Exactly. Honestly, though, podcasts helped me so much. I was like, whenever I was feeling down, or not even when I was feeling down, it was like such a pick me up. I'd be like, oh yeah, right. Self-love, right. Yeah. Like happiness. Yeah. Such a little, like, it's like your little cheerleader on the side. Like, yeah, you can do it. You're awesome.
Totally.
Like, yeah.
I audiobook a lot. That is probably I read and audiobook a lot, but I think audiobooks, they're so handy.
Yeah, exactly. When you're driving, right? And it's like, you might as well make use of your time while you're stuck in traffic.
Exactly. And I love, because I don't do too much fiction, but I tend to get really absorbed into sort of the biographies and tales of people's journeys, and there's so much stuff in there that just resonates or is just inspiring.
Totally. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much us for the day. Was there any sort of like last things that you'd like to sort of like throw in for the listeners?
Well, because this episode was on happiness, my key points for you to work on, like my key core beliefs that you could adopt that really, really help would be: know you are worthy. Know you're worthy of being a healthy, fit, beautiful human being. Know that you're worthy of love. Know that you are worthy of financial freedom. Know that you are worthy of happiness. Choose to be optimistic. See the brighter things in life. Love doesn't hurt. Expectations do. Be the energy you want to attract in life. You always have a choice, and the universe is always watching. So if you're on this journey to personal development and being a good person, you cannot get away with things. If you are going to do mean things to yourself or other people or animals, it is going to come back to you. So clean your energy and be a source of love and light. In order to do that, you can't do anything bad to yourself or others. The universe is always watching. So yeah, your current reality is a reflection of your strongest beliefs. So become self-aware, get to know how your brain is wired, what subconscious beliefs are behind there, and if they're not serving you anymore, then change them.
Perfect. Love it. Cool. Thank you very much, Arel. And if you ever want to catch Arel on her podcast, it is your Elevate Your Soul.
Elevate Your Soul on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Podbean, Pod, whatever cast app. I'm sure I'll be on there. So,
fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you for your time.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.